The Friday Rugby Preview with Stuart Cameron.
Hello and welcome to the Friday Rugby Preview, a brand new series looking at all the Borders clubs, and over the next 9 months or so we'll be following our progress as we launch into a brand new league season which starts tomorrow. Well, joining me each week will be Robin Purdy. We'll be casting our eyes over the weekend's fixtures and hearing from the clubs as they prepare for their games. And we've extended the programme as well, so plenty of time to preview everything. And Robin, the expectation for this season is pretty much off the scale.
It is indeed, Stuart. Pre-season is done and we're just about to get into the real deal, and yeah, I'm massively excited about this, to be honest, simply because I think it's because there's change. We'll discuss the merits of it, no doubt, but yeah, I think if we'd been sitting here without the change, we'd be sitting saying, yeah, there's a top four and it's going to be Currie and Hogg.
Yeah, there is a buzz about this one, there's no
Currie
question about it.
Yeah, but there absolutely is a buzz. Now, we could be sitting in 6 games' time saying, my word, this is a cakewalk, this is boring, but let's see how it pans out, and in the meantime it's going to be exciting, certainly the first few weeks.
And the cloak and dagger situation, which I know the Offside Line have just been saying that they always try and get the ins and the outs of the clubs, and some clubs aren't playing ball, let's put it like that. They're really keeping their cards close to their chest, and perhaps it's a good idea at this point just to bring everyone up to speed by telling them how we got to this position in the first place, because we're a new 12-team Premiership with 3 relegation places, 10 teams in National 1, 3 relegation places. Below that in National 2 and 3 there are 9 teams with 1 going down from each, and 10 teams in the 4th Division with 3 going down, working towards 10-team leagues across the board next season. So how does the Super 6 come into all this?
Well, the Super 6 comes into it because 4 of the teams, Ayr, Heriots, Watsonians and the newly revamped Melrose. Isn't it great for it to be, the whole club to be back as Melrose Southern Knights has been parked, and into National 1 come Stirling and Boroughmuir. Now, there was a lot of discussion about the merits of who was parachuted in here and who went in there. The dust has settled on all of that now, and it is what it is, and it leads to a very, very exciting campaign. You kind of laid it out there. I think for me, looking specifically at the Premiership, where the action's going to be is the 3 down. That it's going to be a dogfight between a number of teams potentially. Could be a wee bit more clear-cut towards the summit, potentially. Jungle drums, you hear who's in, who's out, who's not left, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it sure is going to be exciting.
And certainly Ayr, Heriots and Watsonians, those are the 3 clubs in particular from the Super 6 series who are being talked about in terms of who they have in their squads.
I would say so. It's almost going to be plenty of people have said there's going to be 2 leagues within a league. There's even going to be 3 leagues within a league. What there's certainly going to be is there's going to be the halves and there's going to be the have-nots from a Super Rugby perspective. A well-respected Borders rugby man was in our shop this week, and he's heard that Ayr have 87 at the moment training.
87.
They've barely lost a player from Super Rugby. 87.
Gosh.
Heriots, from what I gather, are probably not that far short of that as well. So, like I say, halves and have-nots. But yeah, Watsonians probably a wee bit less, based on the information that's come out from the offside line. They look maybe a wee bit less stacked, but they've got a good hooker back from Edinburgh, Accies, etc. So yeah, it could be 3 leagues within a league this season.
I'm delighted for Grant Anderson. I know we're talking about Borders teams, but we have to nod towards Ayr because Grant Anderson was the club man last season. He's now got his opportunity to step up with the Ayrshire Bulls players as well. And normally, of course, we got a lot of information out of him. Certainly last season, he was giving us a great insight into the workings of Ayr. I noticed that he contributed 1 line to the Offside Line, which came under the banner of what are your aims for this season, and it was quite simply to win the league.
And I think he's got every right to say that. I'll be absolutely astonished if Ayr don't win the league. We can only go on what you hear in terms of players, necessarily players in, a lack of players out. Now, how they're going to keep everybody happy, I don't know, but if I was a bookie, I wouldn't even give you a price on Ayr, let alone give you something ridiculously odds on. But going back to Grant, I think it's fully deserved. To me, that is a coach that is really going places. I think he's got a lot about him, but I think what's key as well is they've managed to maintain the services of Pat MacArthur, who was the head coach with the Bulls, and they've got him still on board as well. They've got an embarrassment of riches from a coaching perspective.
There's a bit of good news, a bit of bad news as well about all this. It's the Arnold Clark Premiership, and they're in fact the title sponsors of all the leagues right down to the East and the Caledonian and everywhere else. So it's Arnold Clark that we'll be mentioning quite a bit on this. And one of the perks I think that they'll be very happy with is the fact that BBC Alapa have come in, and we were of course going to be going to air against Currie, but that is now switched to 4:10 because of the fact that it's live on BBC Alapa. Our programme, Rugby Radio, that ends at 5 o'clock, so unfortunately we're going to be off air at half time. So obviously we've regrouped a little bit. We'll still be obviously covering it right up to 5 o'clock, but it's put the skittles underneath us a wee bit there. But it is good that there will be television coverage on BBC Alapa for the season, and I'm pretty sure as well we're going to see Hawick and Currie, I think it is, next year in January on a Friday night as well. So that's a development as well, which is certainly going to be a positive thing for promoting the Premiership.
Friday night games especially, it looks like they're going to be televised. Some club treasures might not be overly chuffed at that, lunches and all that kind of stuff, and it's the extra few hours in the bar after it as well when a game finishes at sort of 4:45, and
it's not like Sky Sports where the host club are going to get millions of pounds in compensation.
But,
so we'll have to watch that one.
But from an exposure point of view, great, absolutely. But it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But yeah, I think it's a great coup for Club Rugby to have a sponsor like Arnold Clark on board. They've obviously got the national set-up thing as well, across the board, men and women. But yeah, for there to be a headline sponsor for the club leagues, if you like, then that can only be a good thing as well.
Well, East League has had a bit of a shake-up as well. That means that Langham are in East 1, Hawick Quins are in the second tier, and we now have 4 border sides in East League 3, simply because of the restructure down below there. So Earlston, Hoytland, Dean Duns and Gala YM are all going to be taking part in East League 3, so a lot of good derbies there. And of course, this thing about regional rugby and getting players to get involved, they're more likely at that level to enjoy regular rugby locally, so they can get home in time.
Oh, definitely. I think that's going to be a good thing down the divisions, for sure. The local teams in the same division there, because you're right, and we've spoken about it often enough on this show. The Hawick junior teams, for example, they have an awfully different looking team if they're playing at home to if they're heading away to Edinburgh or further afield. So yeah, if they're all a bit more local, then that's only a good thing.
Well, the East Leagues kick off next week. Ewen Welsh will be our regular correspondent, keeping an eye on all the goings on in those divisions. But the East League campaigns kick in next Saturday, so we'll be hearing from Ewen from next week. But this show is all about Borders teams, and let's start with the Premiership. Melrose, Selkirk, Kelso and Hawick all in there, making up a third of the teams. Tremendous representation from the area.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. Selkirk managed to stay in the division last year. They were kind of towards the bottom end, but it was Jed that went down, so thankfully Selkirk have remained, and obviously Melrose have came back in. There was a lot of talk about it when they did come back in, whether it was right, whether it was wrong. But like I said earlier, the Premiership can only be enhanced by a competitive Melrose team, not Southern Knights. Melrose, black and yellow jerseys, people in the town identifying with the club again, and if they're semi-competitive, that can only enhance the top division for me.
Because I was talking to Rob Moffat, you probably saw the interview pre-season. It's had quite a lot of views, and that was one of the subjects we brought up. It was a very divisive thing, Southern Knights and Melrose. It was like he called it a lose-lose situation.
And I would agree with Rob on that. I completely understand why they did it at the outset. It was to try and give it more of a Borders feel, and bring in supports from other towns and all that kind of thing. But that didn't happen, and it alienated some of the people in the town of Melrose as well. So Rob's right, but the line is drawn under that now. It's back to Melrose. They're back in the top flight, and yeah, I think they'll be looking to consolidate their position in the league this season, and if they can do that, then I think that's a pretty good effort.
So how do you think the other teams are going to fare? Hawick, and obviously we've got Selkirk in there, and Kelso, who did tremendously well. They just got promoted. They end up in 4th place. Fantastic, the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely, and I think they've recruited really well as well. Now, we're going to go back, we're going to talk about leagues within leagues, then you've got what potentially will turn out to be the top three. Certainly for me, then this is just me talking, the top two are Ayr and Heriot's. That's what I would imagine. Watsonians potentially will finish third, but I think looking at the recruitment that's happened at Millennium Park, Currie might feel that they're in with a shout of breaking into that trio, if you like, of Super Six teams that have come back into the league. Currie look strong, they look like they've recruited well. Hawick will feel that they will be knocking on the top four's door. I think if they're being realistic, even the most staunch of Hawick fans, they probably don't see themselves winning the title this season. I think if they can finish in the top four, that's a great result, but that's where they should be. But yeah, I think there just has to be a sprinkling of realism in all this, and there's a lot of clubs make the right sound bites about definitely we're in the top four and we're absolutely going for the top four. And some of those clubs behind the scenes, maybe not even saying it within the camp, but some of those clubs, some of those players will be thinking ninth or above for us this season till we see how it's all going to land. But yeah, Hawick should be aiming higher for that. I like the look of Kelso. I think Kelso have had a really good pre-season. Pointer's a very tough place to go, and I think they've recruited really well. The likes of Dan Gamble, the likes of Borthwick, the likes of Adam Hall. Bruce McNeil's going to have another crack at it. Keith Melbourne's still there. They just look there. They've got some good youngsters coming through as well. The lad Utterson looks a handy young player. Barber's had another season under his belt, and Patterson's had another season. He's a really accomplished operator at Premiership level, of course. But yeah, if Kelso can remain reasonably injury free, now we know that they won't want anybody, me included, talking them up too much, but yeah, I think Kelso can, and I think looking at the fixtures as well, those have landed okay for Kelso in terms of getting off to a half decent start. So yeah, I expect Kelso to be comfortable. Melrose is a tricky one to call because they are shoring off the services for a large part of the campaign of probably their 2-star back rowers, if not their 2-star players in Al Ferry and young Sam Derrick. That's a real blow for them not to be around for a big chunk.
And Donald Crawford is out the whole season.
Don Crawford, that's a blow as well, because he's another player playing for Melrose club team that should have played more, if you like, for the Knights, such as his capabilities. So for them those three to be out the equation, that's a tough one to take for a squad that isn't as strong as, coming back into this level of rugby. They're not as strong as Ayr, Heriots and Watsonians. So I think, again, in what should be a season of consolidation, if Melrose can finish 9th or above this season, I think just great, and take it and get into next season and see where the cards fall with regards to recruitment and all that kind of stuff. I believe there's a couple of Aussies on their way or maybe already here. Potentially, I think they're outside back, so it's how much ball can they get if some of the star forwards are not around. Selkirk on their day can give anybody a real run if they can get their home form sorted. To me, in this division, what are you going to need? You're going to need to pick up maybe 7 wins and a smattering of bonus points might see you all right. What games do you target? Let's be honest about it. I mean, Melrose on Saturday for me, Heriot's coming to town. If Melrose can get a single point out of that, then they've won a watch. Absolute result for me. I think Melrose will be looking at other games, and other clubs will be looking at other games, probably all against each other, to say, well, we're not going to get Millbrae and anything, and get anything. Let's be honest about it. But we've got Selkirk at home, we've got Glasgow Hawks away, we've got Musselburgh away. These kind of games. So yeah, I think maybe 7 wins, 8 wins and a smattering of bonus points. So the likes of Selkirk, the likes of Melrose, what do they target? But yeah, Selkirk are a team that on paper their first 15 are going to have a good crack, but if they start to get a few injuries to a few key men, then the table from last season doesn't lie. They finished 9th in the Premiership. It's going to be, again, if they can finish 9th this season, then absolutely hallelujah.
Musselburgh, of course, and Glasgow Hawks, the other 2 teams in the Premiership, and the 2 of them actually meet at Belgrade tomorrow. So that's one to look out for as well, because both of them were in the lower reaches last season, so vital for them.
Yeah, is it too early in the season to be talking about 8-pointers?
There's no dead rubbers in this at all. There won't be.
There's not, and that's the great thing from a maintaining interest point of view. Even if Ayr and Heriot's run away with it, you've got 3 going down, so there's going to be a lot of tension, throughout the whole season. And like I say, you're not going to Millbrae hoping to pick up 5 points. But if you're Glasgow Hawks, you want to beat Musselburgh, and if you're Musselburgh, you absolutely want to beat Glasgow Hawks and Selkirk and Melrose and potentially Edinburgh Accies, and leagues within leagues, and that's what it's going to be this season. And yeah, it's going to be exciting for a lot of teams. And Glasgow Hawks, looking at what's been announced by them, it's the usual, and I don't know if it's a great thing, but we've spoken before about the turnover of players at the Hawks there, and yeah, he's going to have to get them to gel, is Andy. But he's used to it, and if they've recruited well, then potentially they might upset the apple cart of a few teams this season.
Of course, there's a few law changes, as always. The one that I've kind of noticed is probably the only one that we'll talk about today. The reason for that is because you were glazing over there.
I heard they sent me an attachment or an email, but I've not had a chance to read it yet.
So we'll leave that for another day. We have plenty of time to go over the laws. But the one I kind of like at the moment, which is already in play, is the fact that when it comes to a maul, you have one crack at it, basically. And if you don't do anything with it, you have to use it or it's gone.
Clearly that is designed for the flow of the game, and yeah, that one makes a bit of sense to me, to be honest. And who it will benefit in terms of the Premiership and National 1, etc. It's hard to see at this stage who it will benefit, but it will become apparent quickly enough 4 or 5 games in.
National 1, we have 3 Borders teams, and none of them met each other last season. And that's because Jed, relegated from the Premiership, are now in National 1. Peebles, promoted from National 2, are now in National 1. And Gala, retaining their position in National League 1 as well. How are the Borders teams? I mean, particularly, we're looking at Peebles, just come up. Their first game, they go to Bridgeshaw to take on Stirling County, who will no doubt have some Super 6 players in.
Oh, definitely. If you see or you hear, I think Stirling played Heriot's in a pre-season game, and I was speaking to somebody I know from Heriot's who was at the game, who knows enough about the game, well-respected figure, and he said that if anybody finishes above Stirling, then they will have won the league, was his take on it. I think they'd stuck in pretty well against Heriot's pre-season, so this is a free hit for Peebles, because if they come away with nothing, they're potentially not expected to come away with anything, but it gives them a yardstick to see, well, do we need to strengthen? What do we need to get this better? Do we need to get that better to compete? But again, this is another game for Peebles, newly promoted Peebles against Super Series winners not that long ago, Stirling County. This is not a game that Peebles needs to win.
We'll be hearing, of course, from Graeme Patterson, in fact, all the coaches in this programme. Gala, of course, a young team, done a bit of recruiting. They've got Ewen Robbie in as head coach for the first time. He was involved with the coaching set-up last season. Lewis Bertram's gone there now. Good to meet him last week. They'll be trying to get their regulars back who weren't playing against Kelso and do a bit of damage, particularly on the opening match, which we'll talk about later, against Highland. And then, of course, we've got Jed-Forest. Again, new coaching setup there. Stuart Johnstone. We've got Paulo Ferreira going to pull on the boots yet again. This is his 6th retirement now, I think, and he's back, and also director of rugby, which is fantastic. And some good teams. And our mate Ian Hurd is also involved as assistant coach, along with a couple of others as well. So Jed, Peebles and Gala, National 1.
Yeah, good, and there's going to be some good derbies.
And 3 go down as well.
And 3 go down, and if I'm being candidly honest, do I see either of the 3 winning the league? No, by virtue of the fact that 2 Super Series teams are in there. Let's be candidly honest about it. But again, I think if all 3 can remain in the division, that will be good for Borders Rugby. Jed came down from the Premiership, but last season they massively struggled in the division, and we've seen what's happened to other clubs like Aberdeen, etc. I don't see that happening to Jed this season. I see them not being in too much danger. I don't see them winning the league, like I say, but they've got many more boys down training. They've got a coaching setup in there, and in their Border League game on Saturday conceded maybe 8 penalties and no cards, which by the recent standards for Jed is almost unheard of. Yeah. Some would say a club with a discipline issue previously, but I don't know if that's Hardy going in there and weaving his officialdom magic. But
it's very interesting, actually, because I don't know if you've seen the Stuart Johnson interview that I did this week, but we were talking about that very thing. And he said one of the big things that Ian Hurd is bringing about is this discipline thing, talking to referees, and this 50-50 decision, which if you've been nipped at in the ear for all the match and is a 50-50, suddenly that becomes 51-49.
Oh, yeah, and they talk about, is it creating pictures or painting pictures for the referee now, and yeah, it's just little things. And if you can remain on the good side in the good books, then if you concede 8 penalties on average and have very few cards, then you're going to win more rugby matches than you're going to lose. And if you're talking about staying in divisions and maintain your status, then that's that's all you want at the end of the day. Gala will be looking to get off to a good start. They've got a good first game at home against Highland. Highland very much in the no mugs category nowadays, of course. But yeah, Gala, A lot of good young players coming through there. Maybe, you know, they've lacked a wee bit of experience in the last year to 18 months with some of the players that are, you know, that moved on or stopped playing. So again, I think if we're being honest, if Gala can be mid-table looking up the way, again, that can only be good. If these three can stay in the division, then great for Borders Rugby going forward from this season.
Well, Berwick, they stay in National League 2, but they've recruited well. They're in the National League Cup tomorrow with a game at Penny Pit against Preston Lodge, who are newly promoted. And of course, we all remember the last time the two met at the same venue when the loser of the game was relegated. That was Preston Lodge. Good to see them fighting back again, though, and being promoted again. But this is a cup game, although it appears to be divided into pools rather than straight knockouts. So it's an interesting setup. Berwick drawn to play Stuart's Melville in November. So there's 3 in that pool, 8 pools in all, 6 of them have got 3 in, and 2 with 4 teams. It seems a little bit unnecessarily complicated.
Yeah, unnecessarily complicated. I mean, I think you have to watch how you tinker with these things, or how you put. Like, I've long since stopped watching. Is it even still called the Hinnigan Cup? I've no idea how it works. I have no idea how the format works, and I've completely lost interest in it. And yeah, if you tinker with things too much, and you know, if rugby layman, if you like, doesn't understand how a competition works, then they're going to struggle to have interest in it.
Let's have a look now at the fixtures in the Premiership tomorrow. Then the big game is, of course, at Millbrae between Ayr and Currie. Some people already given the trophy to Ayr, Robin Purdy in particular. Yeah, and Currie are obviously champions from last year, having beaten Hawick at Mansfield Park in the playoff final. It's a 4:10 kick-off, as I mentioned, to accommodate the BBC Alapa TV schedules, and I came across that information by accident. It means our planned coverage of that game on Rugby Radio is now scrapped, as our show tomorrow ends at 5, and they'll probably be at half-time by then. But that's a mouth-watering fixture, no doubt about it.
It's a brilliant opening day fixture.
Isn't it
really?
Just?
It's the best team from Super 6 against the team that won the title last season. So yeah, Currie have recruited, on the face of it, very well. You know, a couple of lads in from Stirling, the boy Hadsall, number 8, he's a good player. Wallace Nelson's in there as well, and guys from Boroughmuir Bears, Scott Robeson and Hamish Bain back from Pro Rugby in France. So they, to me, look the best of the rest, if you want to call it that. So I think it was again in the offside line, there was an article with Mark Cairns, I think it was maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and did they use the term a free hit? You know, Currie go down to Millbrae, they get this game out the way. Again, if they can come away with anything, then, you know, they've won the lottery, but it gives them an opportunity to see where they are, you know, against what many perceive will be the best team in the league. So brilliant opening day fixture for Currie, this really is.
And they're kind of fighting for the other clubs, aren't they? Sort of to see, well, look, you can go to Millbrae and get something out of it. Obviously that's their target, and everyone else will say, well, if Currie can go there and get something, then that gives us a chance. And all of a sudden Ayr aren't the big, you know, favourites that everyone thinks they are.
If Currie could go down there and do a job, or even score a few tries, teams will say, okay, well, they're not absolutely invincible, we can maybe pick up a bonus, or they leak a try or two or whatever. They might be able to do that, Currie. Like I say, from who they had last season, who they've brought in, they certainly look the best equipped from the non-Super Series teams to go down there and get something. But just as easily, they might not. They might get turned over, and they might get turned over quite heavily. Who knows? It's hard to say what's going to happen. But yeah, we'll know more at 6 o'clock on Saturday as to where Ayr are. But yeah, if Currie are coming back up the road with one bonus point and not being cricket scored, then I think they'll be in dreamland.
Well, Accies against Hawick is a repeat of the cup final, which Hawick won, but it's traditionally a close game at Rayburn Place, and we can hear now from Hawick head coach Graeme Hogg.
Rayburn Place, we've had a little bit of success there over the last couple of seasons, but historically it's been a very difficult place for Hawick sides to go and win. We've had some excellent encounters with Accies, Bertie and his squad over the last few years, notably the Scottish Cup final at Murrayfield at the end of last season. An excellent encounter, probably a little bit too close for comfort for us in the end, but a great spectacle all round for Premiership rugby. We've had a tough pre-season. We've worked the boys really hard. Dave Cowan, our S&C coach, and us as a group of coaches identified that we needed to be a little bit fitter to perform in this new look Premiership this season. So the boys have worked extremely hard, and they are now champing at the bit to get some meaningful rugby under their belt. We brought some new signings in. We knew that we needed to strengthen the squad for what was to come this season. Notably, we've brought in Logan Henry, a Kiwi halfback from Wellington, who arrived in the country last week and has added a real spark to our training in the 2 sessions and the 1 pre-season game that he's played in. So we're really looking forward to seeing how he goes. Another new signing, we brought Matt Atkinson in from Aspaitria in Cumbria. He's a big unit in the second row. We wanted to add some size in there to go behind our experienced front row. We've still got all our experienced players. Sean Muir will be leading the charge as captain again this season, ably assisted by Fraser Rennick, our vice-captain. And then obviously in that front row we've got Nicky Little, we've got Russell Anderson, and we've got Ross Graham, a real strength of ours. Back row wise, unfortunately, we've lost Callum Rennick, who's away on the pastures and he's away travelling, but we've still got the influential Jay Linton, who has had a great pre-season. We're really looking forward to seeing how that pack goes. We've added some other signings into our backs as well, notably Matt Reid has came into the club from Boroughmuir Bears. We've also brought back Lewis Ferguson, who was a real asset to us a couple of seasons ago. So we're looking to get these boys on the field. Unfortunately, both Lewis and Matt are out injured at present, alongside Stuart Graeme, who got a nasty injury last week. So all our wishes go out to Stuart and the family. We've certainly not had our troubles to seek in pre-season, but everybody will be in the same boat. It's obviously a little bit of cloak and dagger with this new Premiership campaign, but we're massively looking forward to the challenge. It's obviously really important. We got off to a great start.
The voice of Graeme Hogg, the head coach this season for Hawick, and of course there are many who thought that Sean Muir and Nicky Little would be possibly calling it a day, but you don't write off people like that when they've got the whole lives ahead of them. And Sean Muir's back and as captain, and that's great to see.
Oh, definitely, 2 very experienced and very capable campaigners in there for Hawick, and yeah, that would have weakened things considerably for me if they'd have hung up the boots. But yeah, another interesting game. Hawick and Accies have, as Graeme said, they've had some good ding-dongs in recent times. I thought Accies may have benefited more from Super Series than they appear to have, based on the article on the offside line. Not too many new faces. I thought there'd be more. So yeah, I can see Hawick nicking this one on Saturday.
So important, obviously, for all the teams to get a victory on your first day, and that pressure soon builds up, doesn't it, if you go 2 or 3 down the line without actually getting a victory.
Oh, definitely, and we've spoken about it before. The niggles become a wee bit more problematic than if a team are on a roll, and so you lose a player here and you lose a player there and that kind of thing. So yeah, it really is important to get off to a good start, and these are the type of fixtures where if you're going to be comfortably mid-table or above, then these are the kind of fixtures against each other, the non-Super Series teams that you're looking to target.
Well, Hugh Brown will be at that one for us when we go live on air tomorrow at 2:30. Glasgow Hawks against Musselburgh, we mentioned earlier, 2 clubs out with the borders. Hawks traditionally, though, have got through many players in their typical season, and just looking at their ins and outs, and it takes over a couple of pages.
Oh, it does, and we said before, it's the age-old thing for Hawks, but yeah, they look to have brought in a bit of quality, but it's just how they gel. But they in the fond farewells column, I see that they've lost a few as well. The likes of Pinkerton, good player. The likes of McConkey, who featured well at the start of the season for them last season. So yeah, it's the same old rebuild job. But yeah, if they can gel with some of the players that they've brought in, with again some of the really good players that they've got there already, then they potentially can be okay. And Musselburgh, again, they've brought a few in as well, but again, another team that will be looking to get off to a good start. And this game is a bit of a cliche this week, but this game could go either way tomorrow. We'll just know so much more in 5-6 weeks' time.
Well, another of our feature games will be at Poynter Park, Kelso against Watsonians. Let's hear from Kelso Director of Rugby, and that's Neil Hinnigan.
Plenty of excitement around Poynter Park as we wait for the first Premiership game of the season. We welcome Watsonians to Poynter, and that'll be a tough match for us, given that they've come out of the Super 6 franchise competition, so they will be a fairly strong side. It will be a bit of a step up for the first time for the majority of the squad, but it's a challenge that we're taking head on and embracing. So yeah, it'll be an exciting one, I would hope, and we're expecting a big crowd as well. I think the weather's to be good, so should be a good atmosphere down at Poynter, and we can certainly find out where we are heading at the season fairly quickly with this kind of opposition. Team-wise, fairly settled from what we've been doing in pre-season. Andy Tate comes in and starts at 9. William Today goes back onto the bench. Oscar Davey makes his Premiership debut. Adam Hall is in at 13 as one of the new guys, along with Alex Orr, who makes a fairly big step up from that too with Berwick. He's in at lock. So there's a few bits and pieces there, new stuff for everyone, but overall we look fairly settled, and we've got a pretty much full squad to pick from. It's great to see Liam Herdman back now in full flight, and he takes his place on the bench this week, along with Kiwi hooker Nick Barnes, who's also on the replacements. But I'm sure, everyone will be playing a part. This is going to be a mammoth season, 22 league games. There'll be no let-up. We're going to need a big squad. There's a few people disappointed they're not in the team, but they will all get really good opportunities, and all 7 replacements will more or less be used every week. I would imagine at this level it's going to need a full squad effort. We also play for the Clive Miller Trophy, which is a memorial for Clive, who passed away not so long ago, and his family and that. They put up a trophy between the two sides because of the connection between Clive, Watsonians and Kelso. So that's a nice added bonus to the match. Kelso won the first one 2 years ago up at Watsonians, so this is the first time it's been played for at Poynter Park.
So a little bit of silverware at stake on your first game, which is a nice little bonus.
Yeah, there'll be plenty. There's plenty to play for anyway. There on Saturday. Looking at this one, Stuart, if any game looks like it might throw up an upset, and Neil Hinnigan won't thank me for saying it, but yeah, Kelso just a club in a good place, it would seem. Good pre-season as I mentioned earlier, and I think this is again a good opening fixture for them. But Watsonians could come down fully loaded of Super 6 players, and they could quite easily walk away with the spoils. You just don't know at this point in the season. But yeah, looking at Kelso's opening fixtures, Watsonians at home, Musselburgh away, Selkirk at home, Hawks away. So there's points there up for grabs in the quest to get to that 9th or above place. Kelso can get off to a good start this season.
And of course we've got the added incentive. Nicky Walker, former coach of Watsonians and now coach of Kelso.
Oh well, that's it. He's new in the door, Nicky, and he's going to have plenty of intel for this particular game. That's for sure.
David Ferguson will be there to cover that one for us with a television report from Ewen Welsh tomorrow night, all being well as well. Let's go on to Marr against Selkirk, and here's Selkirk boss Sesh Henderson.
We've got a lot of the last two games against GHC and Jed. Learnt a lot about the squad, a lot of new players coming together, and now we're excited just to get to the start line against Marr, which is, it's going to be tough away from home, but we've trained really well. We'll be ready at the start line on Saturday to be competitive for 80 minutes. The boys are buzzing about it. A little bit of team news. Look, we've got 3 guys that have come up from the youth club who will be involved in the squad. Oliver McClimate will start, and we've got Sean McFarlane and Brodie Allen will make their debuts from the bench. On top of that, a number of players who will just be starting for the first time for Selkirk in the Premiership game. So, we've got Jack Fisher, Corey Tate, Taylor Wilson, are all starting for the first time. They're excited to be involved, and they're looking forward to Saturday. I also mentioned to Ben Pickles will be playing on Saturday. That's the first time he's been back in a Selkirk jersey since he broke his leg against Musselburgh last year. So look, lots of new players, lots of players, same players coming back, co-captains from the 2 McCombs, Aaron and Andrew. Everybody in a good place, and look to go through there and make a good account of ourselves, and come away with points.
Absolutely delighted to see Ben Pickles back on the team sheet.
Oh, almost like a new signing, isn't it? No, that's great. It really is. That was a horrendous injury, so brilliant to see him back. And again, one of those players that, if him included, if Selkirk can get all their best players fit and firing and on the park, then they can cause some upsets this season. They've done well through at Marr in the not too distant past, and After that, they've got Hawks at home, Kelso away, and again, they've not got a super series team until Ayr in the fourth game. So again, they'll be looking to pick up points early doors.
And a good win over Jed-Forest in the Border League away from home. And again, good to have a competitive match under your belt going into the league.
Yeah, I think that benefited Kelso last season. Border League game early in the piece against Peebles. It's competitive rugby at the end of the day, and yeah, that providing you don't pick up horrendous injuries, then that can only stand you in good stead, definitely.
Our feature game tomorrow on Rugby Radio is Melrose v Heriot's. Full commentary on that one and television highlights tomorrow night as well. Heriot's reportedly one of the favourites, while Melrose have come up via Southern Knights placement, and with the Knights team now confined to history, it's Melrose who are back in the Premiership, and they'll be all out to prove that is where they belong. Co-head coach with Ian Chisholm is Scott Wight.
There's a huge amount of excitement down at the Green Yards this year, I think, in terms of the squad obviously being, the majority of the squad being kind of National 1 for the last 4 or 5 years. There's obviously a big expectation in terms of in and around the current core squad that's been part of the club for the last 3 or 4 years to, essentially step it up. And there's probably no few kind of tougher games than Heriot's coming down. Obviously well aware in terms of that they've managed to retain a few of their Super 6 players. So look, it's one that we're hugely excited about. We know the brand of rugby that Heriots are going to bring in terms of, they like to play rugby. So, it should be a cracking afternoon down at the Green Yards. Look, the reality is we've challenged boys in terms of we know it's going to be tough this year. We know it's going to be difficult, but it's one that everybody's looking forward to kind of fronting up. But we'll certainly be challenged on Saturday, and look, it's really exciting to get the season underway and kind of see what everybody's kind of hand is come Saturday. Everybody's been fairly quiet on the off season, so we don't actually know what teams are going to shape up like. So we're into week 1. I'm sure we'll get an idea tomorrow in terms of how those teams then look, and then then we can really get our feet settled back in the Premiership and see where we go.
Scott Wight, co-head coach of Melrose. They've got a lot of boys out, haven't they?
Which is absolutely not what they need. Going into this new campaign with essentially a new team effectively, and there'll be people out there that will be looking quite closely to see how Melrose go, because there was a talk about should they be in this division, should they not. But yeah, the last thing they want is for players. Don Crawford's are a bad one. That's so sad to see. As I mentioned before, Ferry, Al Ferry's out, and
Struan Hutchison's out.
I believe Struan Hutchison's out. Sam Derrick's out. So yeah, and they're going. Yeah, they're going in against Heriots, who look reasonably well loaded from the Super Series days. So again, if Melrose can get anything from this, it's an absolute result. Looking forward, they've got Currie next week away, and they've got Watsonians at home the following week. If Melrose, to me, and I'm just being honest here, if Melrose can pick up a point or two from those 3 games, then that's a great result to me. And then they're into the Musselburghs and the Selkirks and the Hawks, and that's where we'll know a bit more about where Melrose are, for me anyway.
And certainly when the injuries return, they could well be a force.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Melrose should be looking to consolidate their place in the division this season, but if they have a lengthy injury list for a long period of time, then like anybody else, that is going to have an impact, definitely.
Well, there'll be lots to talk about tomorrow during commentary, and you'll be there with Dale Clancy to watch it all pan out. No doubt about it, it's a challenge for Melrose, but home advantage bound to have a positive effect, and of course the 3G pitch as well comes into the equation. So let's go through the 6 games again then. We'll be covering them all on Rugby Radio tomorrow with commentary at Melrose, updates from the others throughout the afternoon. We're on air at 2:30 on Rugby Radio, rugbyradio.co.uk or bordersrugby.net. It's all on the homepage. Just click a button, simple as that. So, Ayr and Currie, Edinburgh Accies against Hawick, Glasgow Hawks v Musselburgh, Kelso versus Watsonians, Marr against Selkirk, Melrose against Heriots. So let's turn our attention to National 1 then. We begin with Biggar against Jed-Forest. Here's Jed head coach Stuart Johnson.
If you look at fixtures, it's probably not one that I would choose, being Biggar away first game of the season. But on the other hand, I'd rather go there in September when the pitch is likely to be green and dryish, rather than December when the weather kicks in, and Hartlepool Mill in the winter with a big forward pack is a horrible place to go, and it's a long 80 minutes, whereas at least we might be blessed with some sun in September, and I say the pitch should be in good condition, and obviously they've spent a lot of money on their grounds as well, so I think that's still ongoing. But no, look, Borth will have them well prepped. They played Kelso in a pre-season friendly and went really well. It's obviously Rhys Cullen, the experience he'll bring, unbelievable to end in that one. Scott McClement going from Selkirk is a big signing for them. You've got Vos at prop, who's been there a long period of time, and he's a big physical guy. Andy Jardine from Melrose, and Andy's a brilliant player. He controls the game really well. If he's at 10 or if he's in the centre, he can crash it up, or he can play a wide game, and he's got a really good kicking game. So look, we're under no illusions that it's going to be a tough 8 minutes up at Biggar. But as I say, the focus is on ourselves at the moment. We don't know anyone in this league because of all the signings, all the changes with Super 6. First week, focus on ourselves, focus on our structures from that Selkirk game. That we've had a big session last night on that, and it looked really good. If we can get that right, and we can get the same stats that we produced against Selkirk, then I reckon it'll be a tight result. But there's no reason why we can't go there and pick up a result.
Feel pressurised at all going into this season?
I'm not sure about the players. I think the players are quite relaxed. They're a good bunch. They've got the experienced heads in there. Will keep that pressure at bay, I would say. But for me, going in there with the season they've just had, and the club or any club not being able to afford to drop down another league, that pressure is there just to avoid that bottom three. And I think, as I said, that the first 4 games are going to give us a good indication of where we'll be during the season. And I say it's not an easy start, the first 4 games that we've got, but if we can pick up a couple of results over these first 4 games, it'll put us in a better position. Whereas if you start off, you pick up a couple of defeats with a season that the players have just had, it's then getting into that mentality again of, right, when are we actually going to win a game? So I think for us, we need to pick up a win, and we need to pick up one in the first few weeks, just to get rid of that mentality, that to show the player that you can win games, and we can win games well.
And there's enough good players in that Jed team to surely sustain their position in National 1.
Oh yeah, I would say so. If they can keep, again, like other teams, if they can keep the majority of the good players fit, then Riverside will always be a tough place to go. Maybe last season excuse from that, but Riverside is a tough place to go. And yeah, Stuart mentioned there about not wanting to go down another division, and I think that's the fundamental for Jed this season. And looking at this game in particular, Biggar, yeah, I agree with him. I'd much rather go there tail end of August than I would in the depths of winter. But yeah, Biggar again recruited well. McClyment from Selkirk, that's a massive signing. Vos again coming back from Super Rugby, but Rhys Cullen, that looks to be a great signing, him going back there. I mean, he could absolutely carve it in National 1 this season. So again, I feel Jed, again, if they can come away with something tomorrow, then I think that's a good result.
Boroughmuir, they take on GHA. We'll talk a little bit about Boroughmuir, because after the club side was in free fall, went down all the way down to National 3, obviously the Super 6 side were being very, very competitive up there, so it's a bit of a combination now. Boroughmuir, one of the teams parachuted into National 1. It's going to be very interesting, because GHA have always been, on their day, one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, again, it'll depend on who Boroughmuir have managed to maintain. I think, again, there was talk about, is it fair that Boroughmuir go back in there and they almost, cast their club side asunder and all that kind of stuff. I disagree with that, but Boroughmuir have got the best under-18s set up in the whole of Scotland, to me, bar none. So it's vitally important that those players get a chance to play at as high a level as possible. Now, some might have said because of that they could have went straight into the Premiership, but yeah, you can't have Boroughmuir with the setup that they've got there having great under-18 players coming down at a level below that, because they would all drift off. So yeah, great youth players coming through, and if there's a smattering of Super 6 guys that have stuck around to play in National 1, then Boroughmuir Stirling going to be there or thereabouts this season.
Gala versus Highland now. Last year at Netherdale they were comfortably ahead with a few minutes to go and lost the game. So plenty to prove this season against Highland. Let's hear from the new head coach, and that is Ewen Robbie.
Saturday is our first league game at home versus Highland. The whole playing and coaching group are excited to get going after all hard work during pre-season. The second team, Gala have a game versus Highland, so it should be a good day at the club. Our first scheduled pre-season fixture cancelled. We were able to get a border league match against a strong Kelso side last week. It was a good opportunity to see where we're at. We saw positives from the game and the players have worked hard this week in preparation for Highland. Highland are a good side and like to play some quick rugby. Coming back in the squad from last week are Craig Keddy, Tim McCavanagh, Harris Rutherford, Gregor Collins, Richie Todd and Russell Kerr. Unfortunately, our captain Angus Dunn injured his ankle against Kelso, so we'll be without him this week. Last season I had some fantastic results and played some really good rugby, but it lacked consistency and performance a wee bit. That'll be a focus for us moving into what will be a very interesting season in National 1.
Big blow, Angus Dunn out for that one, but certainly there will be players who played against Highland last year who certainly will not want to see that happen again.
Oh no, yeah, it's a game they should have won. Absolutely at home at Highland. Great recovery by Highland on that day, but yeah, Dunn out is a blow. He's a really good player, particularly at National 1 level, but a lot of the players that Ewen mentioned there coming back in, particularly Harris Rutherford. Great that Gala have acquired his services for what will probably be the majority of the season, so yeah, it'll be good to see how he goes and how he's developed from his time as a professional player.
Glasgow Accies, they're taking on Dundee, and the much talked about Stirling County, containing a number of Super 6 players from the team that won the Super 6 playoff final, they're at home to newly promoted Peebles. It's a huge task, but one that Peebles are relishing. Here's head coach Graeme Patterson.
The same with most clubs and coaches, it is a kind of sense of excitement as the new season is about to begin, but also there's that kind of feeling of stepping into the unknown a wee bit with all the changes and manoeuvring within clubland that's been over the summer. So clearly it's a step up for us as a club, moving from National 2 up to National 1, but the guys have earned that, by winning National 2 last year. The challenge is going to be cementing a place in that upper league under some pretty tough clubs to play against, but also the factor of the extra criteria that has been laid down in terms of promotion and relegation to restructure the leagues again at the end of this season. So we know it's going to be tough because we're going to be playing a number of very, very good sides. But we are of the mindset that we can do this, but we know we will have to work really, really hard, and the guys are up for that, as they've shown in the pre-season block, and now they're ready to go into the main event, if you like. And I think that's one of the strengths of us as a squad, is the connections that comes into play, with almost all our senior squad having come through our own system, through the school, through the Colts, and up into the senior squad, with a couple of guys that have moved to the area and moved to play here just off their own back. It's predominantly a Peebles based squad, which is good in terms of showing that we have a sustainable model, and also good that these guys know each other and have played a lot of rugby together, so that helps in terms of formulating a plan and also a bond on and off the field. And looking to Saturday's game, we obviously have heard all the chat about how Stirling have kept most of their Super 6 squad, possibly even added a couple. I heard that ex-international Tim Swinson was playing for them last Saturday. We know that that's going to be a really, really tough challenge. But we will approach the game looking to take them on in some areas where we feel that we can get some rewards. So that's a goal that will be set. Denying them opportunities will be key. They obviously have quality players all around, and if we give them enough opportunities, the game will go away from us very, very quickly. So it's about stopping things at source and not allowing them to build any momentum or give them some easy opportunities to strike.
Well, Graeme is a realist. He knows on paper this is a game that will be very hard to win due to the quality of the team, who are mainly used to playing at Super 6 standard and, of course, are the champions. This is against a side, though, who were in National 2 last season.
Yeah, one thing with Peebles, they will get absolutely stuck in. I've been so impressed with them in recent seasons, how they have. They just get stuck in and they give it a real good crack. But yet again, coming back down the road, if they can pick up a point of any kind at Stirling on Saturday, then absolute dreamland.
So to recap the National 1 fixtures, it's Biggar against Jed-Forest, Boroughmuir v GHA, Gala against Highland, Glasgow Accies v Dundee, and Stirling versus Peebles. Well, moving to the National League Cup tomorrow then, Berwick are in a pool with Preston Lodge and Stuart's Melville. They start with a trip to Pennypit to take on a team which are newly promoted to National 2 this year. Let's hear from the new head coach, Paul Pringle.
Really pleased with the way the new senior coaching team settled in. We played PL, that relegation decider a couple of seasons back. I don't think they've changed too much since then, so they're a big physical outfit. So it'll be a tough tie, but one we're looking forward to, just getting started. Unfortunately, we've lost captain Ali Grieve for the next couple of weeks just with work commitments, so Ryan Wilson will step up and captain, which is a real bonus for Ryan, and it kind of reflects the path he's been on the last couple of seasons. So it's good news for him on that front, and he'll do a cracking job, I'm sure. We do have some fresh faces back in the team, so we have Ewen Thompson, James Thompson and Rory Hindhoff all returning at the club. All three guys played Prem 1 rugby last season. Ewan's just an absolute workhorse. He's fantastic to have in the pack, so his energy will really shift things forward. Ben Simmons has joined us from Gala. Angus Atterson returns to the squad this season, which is part of the arrangement we have with Kelso. Angus is a great player and just a really good lad. So, we're pleased that we can continue this relationship with Kelso. I think it is beneficial for all concerned. So I'm glad to see him there and involved. Looking forward to get things started, and hopefully we can get a good result on the road.
Paul's been promoted to head coach of Berwick now, following Colin Young stepping down due to business reasons, and I've got a good feeling about Berwick this season.
Yeah, so have I. Mentioned before about the Thompson brothers coming back. I did not realise that Rory Hindhoff had come back in as well. That's a major coup as well. So yeah, Berwick in a good place, and yeah, Paul, great player back in his day, speaks really well. Be good to see Berwick do well this season.
Well, that's just about it for today on this edition of the Friday Rugby Preview. We're on air, of course, at 2:30 tomorrow for the start of the league season, and our live commentary game on Rugby Radio is Melrose versus Heriot from the Green Yards. Plenty of reporters round the grounds as well, so the 2.5 hours is going to be very exciting and may give us just a little glimpse of an idea at this early stage of the teams to watch. Friday Rugby Preview will be back same time next week, so from Robin and I, a very good night.